Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about Fishers, Indiana in a little bit more detail, and it is a very popular suburb on the northern side of Indianapolis, and there are a lot of reasons why you might want to live there, but there are also some reasons that you might not want to live there, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Fishers, Indiana, or Indianapolis, Indiana, or any of the surrounding metro, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Also tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video, each and every week. Now we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about Fishers, Indiana, or Indianapolis, Indiana, all of the surrounding suburbs. So if you have questions at all, then don't hesitate to reach out any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back whenever it comes time for you to make your move to Indianapolis or any of the surrounding metro. So Fishers, Indiana is certainly one of the more popular suburbs surrounding Indianapolis. Up on the northeast side, and just off to the west you have Harmel, just to the north you have Noblesville, and just to the south you have Indianapolis and some other areas in there as well. But wildly popular because of a lot of reasons. One is that there's a lot going on in Fishers, the quality of life's really great, but you could really go on and on. But if you're moving to Fishers and you don't know that much about it, then you need to know some reasons too why it may not be a fit for you. So we're covering 5 different things as to why you might not want to live in Fishers necessarily, and why maybe one of the other suburbs or Indianapolis itself, just some other place might be a little bit better fit for you. So Fishers, it's been ranked #1 best place to live in the country by Money Magazine. It's been in Forbes, Business Insider, lots of top 10, top 20 lists, top 50 lists. It's all over the place, but of course it may not be a perfect fit for you. So let's hit some of these reasons. #1 has to do with the schools, and the schools in Fishers are very highly rated, but they are really quite large. So they're not the biggest in the entire state. Harmel High School is actually the biggest in the state at over 5,000 kids. But in Fishers is a little bit smaller than Carmel is at close to 100,000 people. It's in the 90s as far as population is concerned. And back in 2006, the high school was getting so big that they eventually finally split it. So both high schools together, you have Hamilton Southeastern High School, you have Fishers High School, but combined, there's more than 6,000 kids. So obviously if that was just one school, that would be exceptionally large. But they're both still over 3,000 apiece and really quite large and growing too, because Fishers is not finished growing. There's still plenty of new construction, people moving in just because they want to be in a place like Fishers. So that's just gonna add more to the population of those schools. And that may not be a fit for everybody. You may not care. You may be moving in, say, I don't have kids going through school, or they're going to private school, so I don't really care how big the schools are, but it's something that you should certainly keep in the back of your head. So big schools can offer a lot of great things. They can offer a lot of opportunity, a lot of academic choices, extracurricular choices. So, if you have somebody that wants to be in the show choir or the marching band, well, they're going to be big. But the negative side of that is that they're also going to be pretty competitive. So for extracurriculars like that, or baseball or football or basketball or softball or whatever it is that your kids might be involved with, there are more kids at the school, there's more competition for those spots. So it can be a little bit difficult to get in there and stand out, or even make the team, or make a squad of some kind. So I've definitely heard people say in the past that they had a great experience, their kids had great experiences going through any of the Fisher schools, but they wonder what it would be like if they went to a little smaller school and had a little bit more of a chance to maybe get in there and do some of those activities that they really like to do because they didn't make the team. So it's just something to certainly keep in mind. And there are some schools that are smaller nearby. One that comes to mind would be Mount Vernon, a little bit further east of Fishers, but then again, you have to want to live over in that particular area. It's a great area, it's just not gonna be Fishers proper, and a great, highly rated school is just much smaller. So the high school is a little over 1,000 kids or so. But it's just something that you certainly wanna keep in the back of your head if you have kids and you're moving into Fishers, the fact that the schools are gonna be larger. #2 is that Fishers happens to be one of the more expensive places to live in the Indy Metro. It's not as expensive as Zionsville or Carmel. On average, average, but it's still fairly expensive. If you go just a little to the north into Noblesville, you'll get a little bit more house in Noblesville than you will in Fishers. People want to live in Fishers for the address, to be in Fishers, to be in Fishers schools. Not knocking Noblesville schools, they're highly rated too, but a lot of people just want to be in Fishers. So you have to know you're going to pay a little bit more. But if you don't really care to have the Fishers address, or you just want to live there because you heard it was a fantastic place to live, well, for the most part, I think you probably heard right, although it's subjective. Everybody's experience is a little bit different, but for the most part, it is a really great place to live. But if you really don't care, there are some other places nearby that are really more affordable. And if you go over to the Geist area, which is a great example of this. So Geist is a huge reservoir on the northeast side, really beautiful. Fishers takes up some of the real estate on Geist. And then just to the south, you get out of Fishers and you get into Lawrence or Indianapolis. It can get a little bit confusing as to where you're in or what town or city you're in, but you're outside of Fishers is my point. So you could have an exceptionally nice house, huge house, let's say on the water, and maybe it's $1 million right on the water, Geist Reservoir, but it's in Lawrence Township, or it has an Indianapolis address. Well, if you go up into Fishers, exact same house on the water, it might be $1.2 million because it has the Fishers address. So of course, you can go into much less expensive homes than that. It doesn't have to be right on the water, but get just into Fishers in that same area around Geist, you will pay more for that house on average than you do down in Lawrence or Indianapolis or even over in McCordsville further off to the east. So it's just that reputation for Fishers that's going to drive the demand up, and of course the prices are then going to go up for the homes in that particular area with that address. Something to certainly consider. And number 3 is that Fishers, it's bigger than what a lot of people think it is. It's actually geographically quite large, and it's getting very close to 100,000 people. It'll soon be over 100,000 people because there is still a lot of expansion going on in Fishers. So if you're looking for the absolute quietest suburb, a place where very, very little is going on, I can point you in the right direction on that because there are some suburbs that are much more calm, and I wouldn't say they're just completely nothing going on, but it's just more calm. Fishers has really kind of become a pretty happening place. Not all of it, of course, but when you get into the downtown area, it's really very happening. And in fact, Fishers is kind of becoming a destination for people. I'm not talking about like a beach vacation or Manhattan or anything like that, but if you live on the northeast side of Indianapolis, or you live up in Noblesville, or of course if you live in Fishers, or even over in Carmel, people come to Fishers to do some of the things that Fishers has to offer. So the IKEA, the only IKEA in the whole Indy Metro, is right there in Fishers, and it's directly across the street from a Top Golf, so that's super fun to do. It's kind of like bowling, but playing golf instead. If you've never done it, you have to look it up, see what it's all about, but there's the only one in the whole Indy Metro is right there in Fishers. And then just down the road from that, you have the Yard at Fishers District, which is a big, I would just say, a conglomerate of little shops and mostly restaurants. So you can go in there and you can park, and then you can walk to everything that it has to offer. And if you live in a place on the northeast side of Indy that doesn't really have that, well, you're gonna maybe drive to those things there in Fishers. So it's a little more busy, a little more happening, a little faster paced than some of the other suburbs, and certainly maybe some of the neighborhoods that you might find in Indianapolis. But that could be silly to you. You might live in downtown Los Angeles or New York and think, whatever, I mean, anything in the entire world is going to be slower than what I'm experiencing. Just know that it's not the slowest place in the whole Indy Metro. You can definitely find slower than what you have in Fishers. And speaking of that, just that it's happening, this would be the next point, is that Fishers is nowhere near completion. So there is the Nickel Plate Trail going in right through downtown. It actually cuts right through Fishers. Similar concept to the Monon Trail, which goes from Westfield, actually north of Westfield, down through Carmel and Indianapolis and all the way to downtown Indy. Fishers didn't really have anything like that until recently. That's being installed. The whole downtown area is just, a lot has happened there in the past 5 or 6 years, but even more is happening right now. So it is completely unsettled and very, very busy, and a lot of construction going on. But if you go out away from that area, there's still a lot of construction, a lot of new homes going in, and then infrastructure improvements as well. And a really good example would be US 37, which if you're coming north on I-69 out of Indianapolis, you can continue on once you get kind of into the middle of Fishers out to the northeast, or you can continue on up US 37 all the way up into Noblesville. That, over the years, has been a disaster. That was one of the worst traffic hotspots you could possibly find in all the Indy Metro. But it's gotten better. and it's because of I-69 and the improvements there, but US 37 was still a disaster. But they are now renovating it to where instead of stoplights, you're gonna have overpasses where US 37 goes underneath those, and then the overpasses, there'll be roundabouts, so if you're traveling from east to west, it's much easier to do. But is that easy to get to? Absolutely not. And what I mean is it easy to get to the finished product? Absolutely not. You have to go through a lot of pain and misery, a lot of orange barrels, and a lot of aggravation to get to where it will be in the future. So if you're looking for a place that is just absolutely settled and there's really no construction going on anywhere at all, and you don't want to deal with any of that, it may not be the best fit. Eventually it'll get there, but it's a place that is changing. It has its eyes on the future, and it absolutely wants to be a premier place to live, and I think they're on their way. It's definitely a great place. It just takes some steps to get there, so just make sure that you keep that in mind. And the last point, the last thing to think about, if you want to find a newer home, a newer construction home in Fishers, then a lot of those homes are way out east. And once you get way out east in Fishers, it's not that every home out there is brand new, but a lot of them are very new because that's where a lot of the expansion of Fishers is taking place. It's gonna have a different feel. So if you're over on the western side of Fishers, that's gonna feel more established and of course much older. The trees out there are gonna be much more mature. It's just gonna have a different look and a different feel. You get out east, it's gonna feel a little bit more rural. Now, you're never, even though it might feel like it, I've had people drive around out there and they'll think, are we near anything? And the answer is always yes. You're usually not many minutes away from just about anything that you could possibly need, like a grocery store or a Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. But it's gonna feel like that. You know, once Fishers, I'd say in the next 5 to 10 years, grows more, then those areas are gonna feel a little less rural than they do now, but you can get a pretty big fringe feel at the moment. And I know that's okay with some people, but I also know that it's been a turnoff to some people. So they'll come to Fishers, they'll really like some areas, really like some homes, but when they get out there, they think, ugh, this is a little further out than I thought, and it's a little more rural than I thought. It's not quite what I'm looking for. So they tend to gravitate back towards where the heart of Fishers and the heart of maybe some of the northern suburbs are located, and that's okay. Just know that the further east you go, it gets newer, and with newer, it becomes, just like in any place, a little less mature. So it'll change decades to come, of course, but that's kind of where it is right now. So another thing to consider. So there you go. There are 5 things to certainly consider when moving to Fishers, Indiana, and they could be reasons why you might not want to live there. So if you have questions at all about Fishers, Indiana, or any of the surrounding metro, then don't hesitate to reach out any way you know how. And until the next one, we'll see you later.